For most Australian workers, superannuation contributions are compulsory, and compulsory systems like ours need default options. Almost everyone has to have a super account, but not everybody wants to choose a fund to manage the account, and not everyone wants to choose their investment strategy. If people don't choose a fund for themselves, then they default to the fund chosen by their employer. If they don't choose an investment strategy, they default to the strategy chosen by the fund. The implementation of MySuper policies over the past few years gave the superannuation sector an opportunity to look hard at default settings. With the support of the Centre for International Finance and Regulation, our research team has studied the sector's thinking about MySuper defaults. We wanted to find out how well these refurbished defaults fit the people they're designed for. To do this, we interviewed superannuation fund executives to get their impressions of what their members wanted and needed from defaults. Then we surveyed over 1,000 members. We asked the members whether they defaulted and why, and what their superannuation goals were. Default settings are critically important in retirement savings systems. Members can opt out of defaults that don't suit them, but many don't. Defaults tend to be sticky. There's a lot of evidence to show that strategies that depend on active choices, like tax rebates for savings, are much less influential than strategies that depend on passive decisions like defaults. So choosing the right default strategy will create real benefits for many members. We wanted to get both fund executives and members' views on what the right defaults are. Our study showed that there's a lot of agreement between members and executives about how MySuper option should work, but there were 4 outcomes that went against the tide of opinion. First, it's often said that almost all members default, and we did find that slightly more than half were in the default fund or in the default investment option, but that actually disguised a lot more active choosing by members than we expected. In fact, 64% of members we surveyed said that they made at least one active choice. Only about a third said they'd gone with both the default fund and the default investment option. Not only that, about a quarter of members in the default fund and 9% of investment defaulters actually chose the default option deliberately. Members are choosing more actively than first appears. Second, it's common to hear that the reason members stick to defaults is because of a lack of interest in super. Some execs we interviewed confirmed this view, saying that their default members are just not interested in superannuation. What members said to us was subtly but importantly different. They emphasised their own lack of skill for superannuation decisions. Most did not want to relinquish control, they just thought the fund could do a better job. Third, there's a general view that people don't trust the superannuation sector. We found quite the reverse. More than 80% of our surveyed default members thought that funds were well monitored and accountable. A similar proportion said that they trusted the default fund. Trust didn't come up much in interviews with fund executives, but our results suggested it should probably be at the top of the agenda in the discussion about defaults. Fourth, an important area of difference between executives and members relates to risk tolerance. Default members express significantly lower risk tolerance, but default investment options typically use growth asset exposures over 70%. While lifecycle funds are designed to de-risk near retirement, many executives express the view that default members need high growth to reach higher retirement incomes. Well-designed defaults are critically important. Superannuation funds need to build and maintain the trust of default members. Part of that process might be a reconsideration of risk settings.